Okay, we're continuing with the Hidden History of Health by me, Pete Rogers. We're talking about neurons and how people get brain damage, okay? This is going to be like one of the most complicated chapters in the book, so if you want to skip this one, you can. But if you want to understand how brain cells work and how you can protect yourself from cognitive decline, brain fog, and dementia, then you're going to find this helpful. So you have a neuron. This is the presynaptic neuron. Here's the postsynaptic neuron. So this neuron is going to send a message to the next neuron adjacent to it. NT is for neurotransmitter. So you get an incoming message to the dendrites. I mean, dendrite means like tree in Greek. And that then activates this neuron. Opens up sodium channels at the beginning of the axon, the tubular part in the middle here. And then this fires an action potential down the axon, which once it arrives, it'll depolarize the axon terminal, meaning it's going to raise its membrane electrical potential, and that's going to open up voltage-gated calcium channels. The calcium coming into the axon terminal is a voltage-gated calcium channel, and then that calcium entry will raise the calcium concentration in this part of the neuron, the axon terminal, and that will cause the neurotransmitter vesicles to travel to the synaptic cleft and to diffuse across it, and then they will activate the postsynaptic neuron. About 90% of neurotransmitters in your brain cells are excitatory, and they're glutamate, okay? All the famous neurotransmitters are only about 1%. So GABA is about 5%. That's inhibitory neurotransmitter. So glutamate's like turning the light on, GABA's like turning the light off. And then the other guys are all modulators, things like dopamine, acetylcholine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, all that stuff, okay? Now here's how a brain cell works. Basically, it's all about calcium. Everything comes down to calcium. That's why I named calcium is like mama. You know, in a family, the mothers tend to boss everybody around, okay? And they're not reasonable. That's how calcium is. It just comes in the cell, says, do this, release your neurotransmitter. If it was a muscle cell, it would say contract your muscle. If it was insulin, if it was a pancreas beta cell, it would say release insulin. So calcium entry into the cytoplasm makes the cell do whatever that cell is designed to do. All right, and then all these other pumps, a big thing they do is they regulate the calcium levels. So you want to be able to imagine you're a puncher and you're hitting a speed bag, pop, 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 pop. You got to punch, pull back, punch, pull back, punch, pull back. So you got to be able to turn these neurons on and off super fast. This calcium exchanger can pump out thousands of calciums in 1 second. They're incredibly fast. That's what I mean by if you have a brain in your head and you study molecular biology and biochemistry, you will believe in God because it's so incredible. Anything that's going to happen fast, pop, 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 it has to be electrical. There's no way you could send hormones that fast. It has to be electrical. Okay, so anyways, it's all handled by these ion gradients, okay? And it all comes down to controlling what's going on with calcium. Now here's a little bit more detail about neurotransmitter. This is a synaptic cleft shown up in close detail. So here's glutamate, the neurotransmitter that will diffuse across the cleft. So neurotransmitter vesicles travel to the synaptic membrane. The neurotransmitter is released into the synaptic cleft, diffuses across the synaptic cleft. It'll first bind to something called the AMPA receptor, which is a sodium channel, and the sodium comes into the cell. Sodium being positive charged, it'll make the charge more positive. It's called the depolarize. The polarize means big difference between the outer and the inner surface of the plasma membrane. Depolarize makes it less charged, less negatively charged. Okay, well anyways, that will cause the magnesium that's sitting in the center of the NMDA receptor, which is a calcium channel. That magnesium is attracted to the original baseline negative 65 millivolt potential inside of the postsynaptic neuron. When this becomes depolarized, the charge inside the plasma membrane becomes more positive. So now the magnesium is not so attracted, it'll pop out. Magnesium will pop out. Once the magnesium pops out of this receptor here, it's called NMDA receptor, now calcium will flood into the cell. Okay? Under normal conditions, that's a good thing. It'll come in when you want it to come in. But there's a lot of reasons why it can come in abnormally, and we're going to talk about those in a moment. One of them is if you don't eat enough plants. Plants are full of magnesium. It's located in the center of chlorophyll. You want to eat some greens every day. You could be low in magnesium. If you're low in magnesium, then you don't block this receptor as effectively, and you'll tend to have increased permeability of this calcium channel. So you're going to get more calcium inside your brain cells than you want. They're going to be overactivated. So a lack of magnesium can cause anxiety, can even lead to paradoxical depression. It's a mild stimulant. Most common nutrient deficiencies are like magnesium deficiency, potassium deficiency, fiber deficiency, because people don't eat enough plant foods. But this is what I mean. They'll give you the abbreviation for M for magnesium, M for mellow. It mellows you out for a good reason, because it's blocking your excitotransmitter, your excitatory neurotransmitter glutamate's effect on your brain cells. You want that. You don't want them abnormally activated. That's like noise in your brain. It's bad for you. Okay. Now you'll also notice that there's a coincident detector here, meaning that glycine also binds to this. Normally glutamate is the main thing to activate the NMDA receptor, but glycine also has to bind to it, and the magnesium has to come out. Okay. So several different things have to happen simultaneously. And what I'm going to show you now is we're going to ramp things up. It's going to keep on building in the complexity. It's all going to make sense. It's all going to be closely integrated, but you're going to see how all of these things are factoring together. I'm actually going to stop this video at this point, and we'll cover the rest of this next time.